No one at the hospital knew who he used to be. They only saw the way he moved, careful, slightly stiff. The way he spoke softly, as if volume might cause damage. They noticed the kid waiting by the nurse's station some nights, backpack on, shoes never quite clean. And they noticed how often the man apologized for taking too long, for asking for a schedule change, for existing in ways that took up space. What they didn't know was that he had already made the worst decision of his life once before, and that he was still paying for it. Every shift, every night, drive home. Every time his son fell asleep in the car before they reached the apartment. When the call came, it didn't come gently. It came with rotors, with uniforms that didn't ask, with a request that was not really a request at all. By the time the helicopter touched the ground, something irreversible had already begun. If you want more stories told with restraint and consequence, you know what to do. Subscribe and stay. He woke before the alarm, the way he always did. Not because he needed to, but because his body no longer trusted rest to end on its own. The room was dim, the air still. A streetlight outside the window cast a pale line across the wall, stopping just short of the bed. He lay there for a moment, listening. Pipes. A distant car. Nothing urgent. He sat up slowly, feet finding the floor without sound. His back protested in a dull, familiar way. He stretched once, careful not to push it. In the kitchen, the refrigerator hummed unevenly. He made a note to look at it later, though he already knew what was wrong. His son was still asleep. The bedroom door was half open, a small sneaker abandoned near the threshold. He nudged it back with his foot. The boy slept on his side, one arm thrown over the pillow, hair flattened on one side of his head. The man watched him for a few seconds longer than necessary, then turned away. Coffee first, then the lunch bag. He packed the same thing every day. Sandwich, apple, granola bar. No surprises. He checked the clock once while the coffee brewed, then again as he poured it. He drank standing up, leaning against the counter, eyes half closed. The shower ran longer than usual. He stood under the water until his shoulders loosened. There was a thin white scar along his ribs that he avoided looking at. He dried off, dressed, folded the towel neatly. Everything had its place. By the time his son shuffled into the kitchen, rubbing his eyes, the man was already tying his shoes. "Morning," the boy said. "Morning," he answered, voice low. The boy climbed onto the stool and poured cereal without spilling. He had learned early how to be careful. They ate in silence, broken only by the sound of milk against the bowl. The man watched the clock again. "You working late?" the boy asked. Yes. The boy nodded. He didn't ask why. They left together. The hallway smelt faintly of cleaning solution. The elevator took longer than usual. The man kept his hand lightly on the boy's shoulder as they stepped out into the morning air. It was cool, gray, the kind of weather that didn't commit to anything. At the school drop-off, the boy hesitated before opening the door. "I'll be at Mrs. Larkin's after," he said. "I know." The boy looked at him, as if checking something, then closed the door and walked away without turning back. The drive to the hospital was familiar enough that he barely registered it. He parked in the same spot, took the same route through the staff entrance. Inside, the noise hit all at once. Phones, voices, carts rolling across tile. He changed quickly in the locker room. His scrubs were clean but worn thin at the knees. He tied the strings carefully, then retied them. A younger nurse brushed past him, laughing about something he didn't hear. At the nurse's station, the charge nurse handed out assignments. "Can you take overflow again?" she asked him. "Sure," he said. She nodded, already moving on. The morning passed in fragments. A patient asking for water, another needing help to the bathroom. He moved steadily, efficiently. When something went wrong, he fixed it without comment. When something went right, he didn't linger. A doctor snapped at him once for being too cautious with a medication adjustment. He listened, nodded, did it anyway after double-checking. The patient stabilized within minutes. No one mentioned it again. During his break, he sat alone in the corner of the cafeteria. He ate half his sandwich, then folded it back into the bag. He checked his phone. No messages. Someone at the next table joked about career nurses who never moved up. Another laughed. He kept his eyes on the floor. Later, as his shift ended, he volunteered to stay an extra hour. Someone always needed it covered. He washed his hands longer than required, dried them carefully. As he left the unit, he passed a window and caught his reflection. Tired, older than he felt some days, younger than he felt others. Outside, the sky had darkened. He stood for a moment before getting into his car, listening to the city breathe. Nothing about the day marked it as different. That was the problem. He picked his son up just after 7. Mrs. Larkin waved from her porch, holding a mug in both hands. The boy thanked her before she could say anything else. He always did. In the car, the radio stayed off. The boy leaned his head against the window, tracing shapes in the fog with one finger. The man drove with both hands on the wheel, eyes forward. When a truck honked too close behind them, his shoulders tightened. He didn't react. At the apartment, the refrigerator finally gave out. Warm air spilled from inside when he opened it. He knelt, pulled the unit forward, unplugged it. The boy watched from the table. "It's the coil," the man said, more to himself than to the boy. He worked in silence, movements precise. A screw set aside. A panel lifted cleanly. When it was done, the fridge kicked back on with a steadier hum. The boy nodded once, as if that explained something. Dinner was simple. Pasta. Jared sauce. They ate while standing, plates resting on the counter. At bedtime, the boy paused in the doorway. "Why don't you ever get mad?" he asked. The man considered the question longer than the boy expected. "I do," he said. "I just don't use it much." The boy accepted this. He always accepted what was given without asking for more. After the lights were out, the man sat alone at the table. His phone buzzed once, an automated reminder about his next shift. He deleted it. At work the next day, a new supervisor introduced herself. She shook hands quickly, firmly, with the doctors. With him, it was brief. Her eyes slid past him almost immediately. During rounds, she asked who wanted to lead a difficult case review later that week. A few nurses spoke up. He didn't. No one looked at him. When a patient went into sudden distress mid-morning, the room filled fast. Voices overlapped. Orders were shouted. He moved to the bedside without waiting to be told, adjusted the bed angle, cleared the airway, stabilized the IV. His hands were steady. His voice, when he spoke, cut through the noise just enough. The supervisor glanced at him, surprised, then turned back to the doctor. Afterward, she said, "Good assist," and walked away. In the supply room, another nurse smirked. "You always like to play it safe," she said. "Some of us are trying to move up." He replaced a box of gloves on the shelf, aligning it with the others. "I like patients leaving alive," he said. She laughed, unsure whether it was a joke. On his lunch break, he didn't sit. He paced the corridor near the windows, stopping once to watch an ambulance pull in. His reflection in the glass stood straight, shoulders squared without effort. For a moment, he noticed it. Then he stepped back. He passed a group of interns debating a procedure, voices loud with certainty. He slowed, listening. One of them said something wrong. He opened his mouth, then closed it. They would learn, or they wouldn't. That afternoon, a senior doctor asked him to stay late again. "You don't mind, right?" the doctor said. "You're flexible." "Yes," he said. At home that night, the boy did his homework at the table. The man washed dishes, then dried them. When he finished, he leaned against the counter, watching the boy erase and rewrite the same sentence. "Did you used to do something else?" the boy asked without looking up. The question landed heavier than it should have. "Yes," the man said. "What?" He dried his hands slowly. "Something different." The boy nodded. He didn't press. He never did. Later, after the boy was asleep, the man stood in the doorway longer than usual. The apartment was quiet, safe, small. He closed the door carefully. Power had not been taken from him. It had drained out over time, unnoticed, through choices that seemed reasonable when made one at a time. The joke started small. A comment in passing. Someone asked if he was the house dad of the unit. Another nurse laughed and said it fit. He smiled once, thinly, and kept walking. By midweek, the humor settled into place. When a difficult patient assignment came up, someone said, "Give it to him. He's patient." The word landed with more weight than intended. No one noticed. He took the assignment without comment. The patient was a middle-aged man with a temper and a fractured hip. He cursed at anyone who touched him. The man waited until the room emptied, then spoke quietly. "I'm going to help you sit up," he said. "You can swear if you want. Just don't move." The patient stared at him, then complied. The transfer went smoothly. When it was done, the patient exhaled hard. "Why don't you yell?" the patient asked. "Because it doesn't help," he said. The patient considered that, then turned toward the wall. Later, at the station, two nurses whispered. "He could have been more," one said. "You know, if he tried." "Tried what?" the other asked. "Anything." He filed charts nearby, pretending not to hear. His hands moved steadily, pens scratching the same careful letters. At home, the fridge failed again. He opened it, listened, closed it. This time he didn't fix it. He unplugged it and taped a note to the door, "Do not open." The boy watched him do it. "We'll use the cooler," the man said. The boy nodded, accepting the adjustment without complaint. That night, the boy's school sent an email about career day. Parents were invited to talk about their jobs. The man read it twice, then deleted it. At work the next morning, a code was called 2 rooms down. He was there before his name was said. He moved automatically compressions, airway, timing. When the doctor arrived, he stepped back without being told. The patient survived. Afterward, one of the younger nurses said, half laughing, "You ever think about doing something more intense, like ER or flight?" He shrugged. "This is fine," he said. She looked at him like she didn't believe him. During a slow moment, the supervisor walked by and said, "You're reliable. That's good. Some people need that." He thanked her. In the locker room, someone taped a cartoon to his locker. A stick figure pushing a stroller with a nurse's cap on. "Soup dead," written underneath. He peeled it off and folded it once before throwing it away. No one apologized. No one needed to. That evening, the boy asked him to check his math homework. He sat beside him, pencil in hand. "You're good at this," the boy said. "It's just numbers," the man said. The boy frowned. "It still counts." The man paused, then nodded. Later, as he lay in bed, the ceiling fan ticking softly, he thought about the word potential. How often it had been used around him, like something he had misplaced. He slept lightly, as he always did. The message came while he was restocking linens. Not through his phone. Not through the hospital system. A man stood at the end of the hall and waited until he looked up. The man wore a dark suit that didn't belong in the building. No badge. No clipboard. He held himself still as if motion were optional. When their eyes met, the man nodded once. "Can we talk?" he asked. The man glanced at the cart, then at the patient room beside him. "Give me a minute," he said. The suited man didn't move. He finished folding the last sheet, placed it carefully on the stack, and pushed the cart into the supply alcove. When he turned back, the man was still there. They stepped into an empty consultation room. The door closed softly behind them. "You're hard to find," the suited man said. The man didn't respond. The suited man reached into his jacket, pulled out a slim folder, and set it on the table. He didn't open it. "You're listed here under a different role," he continued. "Different clearance. Still active." "That's a mistake," the man said. The suited man shook his head. "It isn't." There was a pause. The hum of the lights filled the space between them. "I'm not available," the man said. "We know," the suited man replied. "That's why I'm here." Outside the room, a nurse laughed loudly at something. The sound felt distant, misplaced. The suited man finally opened the folder. He didn't slide it across. He only turned it slightly, enough for the man to see a name. His name. Spelled correctly. Followed by a designation he hadn't heard spoken aloud in years. His jaw tightened. His hands stayed loose at his sides. "I left," he said. "Yes," the suited man said. "But you were never removed. That's not how it works. It is when someone vouches for you, and someone did." The man looked away, toward the door. For a brief moment, he thought of his son sitting in the after-school room, backpack at his feet, waiting. "I can't," he said again. The suited man closed the folder. "We're not asking you to go anywhere today," he said. "We're asking you to be ready." "For what?" The suited man hesitated, just long enough for extraction. The word settled heavily in the room. It wasn't dramatic. It was precise. Before the man could respond, the hospital intercom crackled overhead. A security announcement. "Unscheduled air traffic clearance requested." The suited man checked his watch. "They're early," he said. The man felt it then. Not fear. Recognition. His posture shifted without permission. His shoulders squared. His breathing slowed. "You brought them here," he said. "We brought the option," the suited man replied. The building seemed to tilt slightly, as if adjusting to new weight. They stepped back into the corridor. People were already stopping, looking toward the windows. Phones came out. A low, thudding sound pressed against the walls. Rotors. The man walked toward the nurse's station. The charge nurse looked up, confused. "Do you know what's going on?" she asked. "No," he said. It wasn't a lie. Not completely. Security moved faster now. Doors locked. Administrators whispered urgently near the elevators. The sound grew louder, vibrating through the floor. From the window at the end of the hall, the helicopter came into view. Gray, marked, descending into the staff parking area. Someone said, "Is this a drill?" No one answered. The suited man stayed a step behind him as they approached the exit. "You can still say no," the suited man said quietly. The man stopped walking. "If I do?" he asked. "What happens?" The suited man didn't answer right away. "Then someone else goes," he said, with less experience. The rotors slowed. Dust and loose paper swirled outside. The doors opened. Every eye in the corridor turned toward them. The man took one breath, then another. Down the hall, at the end of the seating area, his son sat with his backpack between his feet. He had been dropped off early by Mrs. Larkin for a schedule mix-up. He looked up just as the doors opened. Their eyes met. The boy stood. "Dad," he said. The sound of his voice cut through everything else. The man stepped forward once, then stopped. The suited man waited. The helicopter settled onto the ground. The decision had not been made yet, but it was no longer avoidable. The doors stayed open longer than necessary. No one seemed sure who should close them. The wind from the rotors pushed into the corridor, lifting loose papers, rattling a trash can against the wall. Someone shouted for security. Someone else told them to stand down. The man didn't move right away. He raised a hand slightly, palm out, not to stop anyone, just to create a small pocket of space. It worked. People hesitated. They always did when someone looked certain. He walked toward his son first. The boy stood where he was, backpack still on the floor. His eyes moved from the helicopter to the uniform stepping off it, then back to his father. He didn't look scared. He looked alert. "You said you were working late," the boy said. "I am," the man replied. The answer felt thin, even as he said it. A uniformed officer approached, stopping a few steps back. He waited. The suited man stood to the side, hands folded, saying nothing. Around them, phones were up now. Whispers moved faster than sound. The man knelt so he was level with his son. He rested one knee on the tile, careful, balanced. His voice stayed even. "You're going to stay with Mrs. Larkin tonight," he said. The boy nodded once. "For how long?" the boy asked. "I don't know." The boy considered this. Then he said, "You always come back." It wasn't hopeful. He wasn't afraid. It was a statement, said the way he said most things, as if he were describing the weather. The man closed his eyes for half a second. When he opened them, he nodded. "Yes," he said, "I do." The officer cleared his throat. "Sir," he said, respectful now. "We need to move." The man stood. He placed the boy's backpack into his hands, adjusting the strap so it sat properly on his shoulder. The boy didn't hug him. He stepped back when told. As the man turned, the charge nurse stepped forward. "What's happening?" she asked. He looked at her. Really looked. "I'm resigning," he said. The word landed harder than the helicopter ever could. She opened her mouth, then closed it. Behind her, the supervisor watched, eyes narrowed, recalculating. "You can't just," the supervisor began. "I can," he said. "Effective now." There was a beat of silence. Then the supervisor nodded stiffly. "Turn in your badge," she said. He unclipped it from his waistband and placed it on the counter. It made a small sound when it hit the surface. Final. Unremarkable. Someone behind him whispered his name. Someone else asked if he was military. A third person said, "I knew it." He didn't look back. Outside, the noise was overwhelming. The rotors hadn't stopped completely. Dust coated the ground. 2 crew members waited near the open door, faces covered, eyes scanning. The suited man walked beside him now. "You didn't have to do it this way," he said. "Yes," the man replied. "I did." He paused at the edge of the concrete. The helicopter loomed, impersonal, ready. He reached into his pocket and pulled out his phone. He handed it to the suited man. "Call her if I don't," he said. "She'll know who you are." The suited man nodded, accepting it without comment. As the man stepped forward, one of the nurses called out. "Wait," she said. "Is this why you are always so calm?" He stopped. He turned just enough to be heard. "No," he said. "It's why I'm not." Then he climbed into the helicopter. The door closed. The rotors accelerated. The sound swallowed everything. Inside the hospital, the hallway slowly returned to itself. Security lifted the lockdown. Administrators argued quietly about protocols. Someone taped a sign over the parking lot window to block the view. At the nurse's station, his name was already being crossed off the schedule. A blank space remained where his next shift should have been. The boy watched the helicopter lift until it was no longer visible. Mrs. Larkin placed a hand on his shoulder. "Come on," she said gently. He picked up his backpack. "Dad will be tired," the boy said. "Yes," she replied. They walked away. The hospital kept moving. It always did. But something had been removed, and it did not come back into place. The helicopter leveled out above the city, then banked east. The noise settled into a constant pressure, no longer violent, just present. The man sat with his back straight, hands resting on his thighs, fingers loose. Across from him, 2 operators checked equipment without speaking. No one needed introductions. A headset was placed over his ears. He adjusted it once, then left it alone. The suited man, now without his jacket, sleeves rolled lean close enough to be heard. "Briefing will be short," he said. "You've already read most of it." "Yes," the man replied. "You don't have to prove anything." "I know." The suited man watched him for a moment, then nodded and moved away. The city fell back beneath them. Buildings gave way to darker stretches of land. The man focused on his breathing. In through the nose, out through the mouth. The pattern returned without effort, but it never really left. A pack was handed to him. He checked it methodically. Weight, straps, seals, everything where it should be. His hands moved with quiet certainty, not rushed, not slow. Muscle memory carried most of the work. What it didn't, his attention filled in. As he adjusted the straps, his shoulder twinged. He noted it, didn't favor it, just adjusted his angle. Across from him, one of the operators watched with open curiosity. "You been out a while," the operator said. "Yes. You still good?" The man tightened the final strap and looked up. "I'm careful," he said. The operator smiled faintly, not unkindly. "That'll do." The helicopter descended onto a tarmac surrounded by temporary lights. Vehicles waited nearby. No markings, no unnecessary movement. As soon as the skids touched down, the door opened and the noise rushed back in. The man stepped out last. The ground felt solid, familiar. Inside the briefing room, the lights were low. A screen showed satellite images. A route highlighted in white. A structure marked with a single square. The objective was explained plainly. No embellishment, no speeches. When it was done, the room stayed quiet. "Any concerns?" the commander asked. The man considered the screen. He thought of narrow hallways, of timing, of the people who would be affected whether they agreed to it or not. "The exit window is tight," he said. "If it collapses, you lose leverage." The commander nodded. Agreed. No one asked where he had been. No one asked why he left. It didn't matter here. During the wait, he cleaned his hands with a wipe from the kit. Then again, he checked his watch, not the time, the date. He calculated how many days of groceries were in the cooler back home. Enough. He sat alone on a bench near the wall. Around him, the team moved with purpose, checking and rechecking. The room smelled of metal and oil. For the first time since the helicopter lifted, his thoughts returned fully to his son, not as an ache, as a presence. He pictured him doing homework at Mrs. Larkin's table, erasing carefully, not rushing. He reached into his pocket and found nothing. The phone was gone. He had known that. Still, his hand lingered there for a moment before dropping back to his side. This was not the man he used to be. That man had moved faster, spoken less carefully, believed more in control. This man waited, listened, counted costs. When the call came to move, he stood without hesitation. At the door, the suited man caught his eye. "You sure?" he asked quietly. The man nodded. "I am," he said. Not because he wanted to be, because this was who he was now. They moved at dusk. Light was the first thing to go, thinning until edges softened and distance lost meaning. The man adjusted his pack as they walked, the weight settling into familiar places, the terrain forced single file. No one spoke. He counted steps without meaning to. Adjusted when the ground changed. When they stopped, he stopped. When they waited, he waited. His body understood the pace better than his mind did. At the first halt, he checked his gear again, not because it needed it, because the action steadied him. One of the operators handed him a water bottle. He drank slowly, capped it, stowed it. "You good?" the operator asked. "Yes." The answer was enough. As they approached the structure, the air changed. Less wind, more stillness. The kind that carried sound farther than expected. The man shifted to the rear position without being told. He preferred seeing the whole line. The breach was clean, quick. Inside, the space narrowed. Concrete walls, low ceiling. The man moved carefully, mindful of his shoulder. He took point when asked, stepping forward without argument. In the hallway, a door stuck. He applied pressure where it mattered. The door gave. He didn't force it further than needed. The objective was reached sooner than expected. That was never a good sign. He scanned the room, eyes moving, cataloging details. Someone was missing. "They moved," he said. The commander swore under his breath. The exit plan shifted. The tight window narrowed further. They moved again, faster now. Not rushed, but close. The man felt the familiar tightening in his chest. He acknowledged it, then set it aside. When the collapse happened, it wasn't dramatic. A sound, a change in air pressure, dust. The man was already moving, pulling one of the operators back as debris fell where he had been standing a second before. They lost the primary exit. "Secondary," the commander said. The man shook his head. "Too exposed," he said. "You'll bottleneck." A pause. Not long. Long enough. "Options," the commander said. The man looked at the map in his head. Angles. Timing. What could be held? What would fail? "I can clear it," he said, "but not fast. And the rest of us? You'll need the primary distraction." The room went quiet. Not frozen. Focused. The man adjusted his pack again. Loosened one strap. Tightened another. He felt the cost of the choice settling in his shoulders, his spine. He thought briefly of the fridge note taped to the door. "Do not open." "Negative," the commander said. "We don't leave anyone." The man met his eyes. "You won't," he said. "You'll leave later." Another pause. This one heavier. The commander nodded once. 5 minutes, he said. No more. The man moved before anyone could change their mind. The passage he chose was narrow and unstable. He tested each step. He worked methodically, clearing just enough, bracing where possible. Dust coated his hands. His shoulder burned now. He adjusted again. Above him, the structure shifted. He felt it more than heard it. He cleared the final obstruction and keyed his mic. "Go," he said. They went. He stayed. When the last footsteps faded, he exhaled slowly. He had not been afraid during the work. Fear came after. He let it pass. He turned toward the secondary exit and began moving. It took longer than 5 minutes, but the path held, and when he emerged into open air, alone and breathing hard, the night felt larger than it had before. The cost had been paid. Whether it was enough, he did not know. The extraction team found him an hour later. He was seated on a low concrete barrier, helmet off, hands resting on his knees. Dust streaked his sleeves. His breathing had steadied, though it took effort to keep it that way. No one asked why he was alone. They offered water. He drank it. They checked his shoulder. He waved him off after a brief inspection. It would hold. It always did, until it didn't. The return was quieter. No conversation. No replaying of moments. The helicopter lifted and carried them back the way they had come, lights of distant towns blinking beneath the dark. He closed his eyes for part of the ride, not to sleep, just to rest them. At the base, paperwork waited. Medical clearance. A short debrief. The commander shook his hand once, firm and direct. "You did what we asked," he said. The man nodded. "You did more," the commander added. The man didn't respond. By morning, he was back where the night had started. Different clothes. Same posture. The suited man returned his phone without comment. "There's a car," the suited man said. "It'll take you home." The man looked at the vehicle, then shook his head. "I'll walk," he said. The suited man hesitated, then nodded. The walk took longer than expected. His shoulder ached. His legs felt heavy, but familiar sidewalks helped. The city was waking up. Storefronts opening. Buses stopping and starting. Life continuing without awareness of what had been avoided. At the apartment building, the hallway smelled faintly of cleaning solution. The elevator was broken. He took the stairs. Inside, the cooler still sat by the counter. The fridge hummed, uneven but alive. The note was still taped to the door. He peeled it off and threw it away. In the bedroom, his son slept curled on his side, one arm over the pillow. The man stood in the doorway for a long moment, longer than usual. The boy stirred, then opened his eyes. "You're home," he said. "Yes," the man replied. The boy sat up, rubbing his face. "You're late," he said. "I know." The boy looked at him carefully, then nodded. "Okay." There were no more questions. Later that morning, the man returned to the hospital. Not in scrubs, in regular clothes. He walked to the nurse's station. A different charge nurse looked up, surprised. "I'm here to clear my locker," he said. She nodded, unsure what else to do. At the locker, the space looked smaller than he remembered. He emptied it quickly. Shoes, a spare shirt, a folded note from his son he hadn't known was there. As he turned to leave, someone spoke behind him. "They said you were military," a nurse said. Not mocking, not curious, just stating it. He paused. "I was a nurse," he said. "I still am." She didn't argue. Outside, the parking lot looked the same. No helicopter, no uniforms, just cars and heat and the sound of traffic. At home, he cooked breakfast. Real breakfast. Eggs. Toast. The boy ate slowly, watching him. "You quitting?" the boy asked. "Yes." "What are you going to do?" The man set a plate in the sink. He thought about it. "Something that lets me come home," he said. The boy nodded, satisfied. That afternoon, the man fixed the fridge properly, replaced the part, cleaned the coils. When he plugged it back in, it ran steady. That evening, they ate at the table. Nothing else happened, but the space he had left behind stayed empty. And the life in front of him no longer was.